we're lucky because we know each other.
Yep.
With your kids as my patients and me as your pediatrician, we were lucky because I have been involved in learning about the infant Thrive breast product and helping with some of the collecting of data and working with the device with moms. And obviously I felt like you were such a great candidate and it would be such a good thing for you to use and for you to learn from. Tell me about what your experience with the Thrive breast was and what you feel like it did to help you, where you felt like you had hurdles with it.
Well, I kind of say this sometimes is that I wish it had been around my first time around.
I'm kind of glad it wasn't.
Yeah,
because then you had something to compare.
I had that experience of not having it and realizing how beneficial it would have been to have it. Right.
Yep, right.
I started telling a lot of moms that were first time, parents or, second time moms, even I was like, this is so great. When I had my second one, like I said, toddler, you're running around, schedules, you're not drinking as much water, you're not eating maybe as great of food, and you're, whatever it is. Because everything's in between. And I think what was so great about the device is that I could really see like data and really piece together like, okay, this is how much milk I'm producing. Maybe if there was like I had been sick. I think so many times as a mother, you're thinking about every single thing when you're breastfeeding, because you're literally feeding your child all the time. And I think that it really helped me to really take in that data and say, okay, it's all in my head. Like I'm still feeding her. She's fine. Or even in the sense of like learning about bottles. Once we started bottle feeding, it was so great to actually know like, okay, around 3 or 4, it's going to be about this much. But then later tonight, she likes her bigger feeds. And the data doesn't lie when it comes to that stuff. It was so great to kind of take that portion of the guessing game out, I think. Whereas the first one, when you switch from breastfeeding to bottles or, having somebody else feed your baby, all those times, it helped tremendously.
One of the things that I think was really helpful and is always interesting is once you do start to switch to the bottles, once you know how much the baby is getting via the breast, now you take that leap and you can use that information to then start feeding the baby close to the right amount.
And not wasting any, right?
And not waste. The liquid gold, we don't want to waste. So that I think is a really neat piece of it too. And then I think as you got further along, the efficiency piece of it becomes an issue, right? So your feeding may be longer in those first couple of days and weeks because the baby is not familiar with how to feed. You're not familiar with how the baby feeds.
Right.
And so as that time wears on and you start realizing, oh my gosh, we're feeding different amounts, we're feeding different spaces between feedings, we're feeding for different durations, the Thrive Breast gives you the opportunity to know that transfer of milk is happening, even if it's happening over a different period of time.
Yep.
Because the efficiency is something that I think that you really realized with the girls that was such a big deal. You didn't have to feed maybe the same amount of time per side that you did last month because the baby became more efficient, the baby became better skilled feeder, and maybe you became a better nurser in that way too. But collecting that information and kind of using it, where were there some places that you felt like you were able to use that information? And I'm going to go with the first one I remember, which is when we could let her sleep longer overnight.
Yep.
So that's always a big one when the baby's weight gain is good. That's a big jump. Where were there other places where you felt like it gave you some licensure to do something different, like working out or leaving her or whatever?
Yeah, I think that, when you're trying to figure out, like you bring up a good point, is how much time you're obviously feeding for, how much of that is getting to the baby. We talk about, letting them sleep longer and making sure they still have enough, input, if you will. I think what was really great about this device that helped me so much is that as she grew, obviously she was taking in more milk. And so her feedings were obviously bigger, which allowed me to, drop a feeding or whatever and get some of the time back for myself. I think as moms, like we're so, narrowly focused on, I got to take care of the baby, got to change the baby, and everything just becomes that. And then there's a position where you want a portion of your life back, and that's okay too. Like you don't have to just be that all the time.
As I say, you have rights too.
Yeah.
I always say to moms. So figuring out where you can find that time.